Welcome to the deep dive. You brought us a fascinating stack of sources today, all circling around really one of the biggest challenges for any organization right now.
Right.
How do you get ahead and stay ahead when the world is just changing at this, frankly, dizzying pace? The real question is sustained success even possible anymore?
It really is the central tension of modern business. We're going deep into the work of John P. Kotter, who
Right.
argues that the very structure we all rely on, the traditional hierarchy, is, well, it's basically obsolete for handling strategic change.
It's like trying to navigate a Formula One race with a container ship.
Exactly. It's just the wrong tool for the job.
So our mission for this deep dive is clear. We're going to unpack Kotter's solution, what he calls the dual operating system.
Dumber DOS, yeah.
We'll dig into why the old way is failing, how this new second system actually works with its volunteer army and 8 accelerators, and the just monumental cost of getting this wrong.
And the core idea we have to get our heads around is pretty simple. That single system that worked for 100 years, the one built for efficiency, it just can't deliver the speed we need today. You need two systems working together.
Okay, so let's start with that paradox. Nearly all successful companies, when they start out, they look like these incredibly agile, dynamic networks.
Kotter calls them solar systems. You know, flat, fast, everyone's kind of orbiting this central vision and making things happen.
Everyone's rowing in the same direction, they're taking risks, they're seizing opportunities, but then what happens?
Well, success happens, and as they scale, they have to professionalize. So they naturally, almost inevitably, evolve into these massive centralized hierarchies.
Giza pyramids he talks about.
Exactly. They become pyramids built for control, for standardization, for predictability. And look, you need that for scale. But it tragically optimizes the company for reliability, and in the process, it just crushes strategic agility.
And the thing is, it's not about bad people or, bad intentions. It's the architecture itself. The hierarchy is just designed to resist change.
By its very nature, yeah. It creates silos, it generates these endless bureaucratic rules, it forces this myopic, short-term focus on quarterly numbers.
And that fosters complacency. It's built for the status quo.
And companies know this is a problem, so they try to bolt things on. They create a task force or a new strategy department, or they'll hire a massive consulting firm.
Which Kotter calls ornaments.
That's the perfect word. They're just decorations on a system whose fundamental design flaws are still there.
To really feel the weight of this, we have to talk about the stakes. The sources detail this really powerful cautionary tale of a professional services firm.
Yeah, this firm had huge ambitions. They wanted market dominance. And they had this one big strategic project, an $8 million global HRIT system.
Sounds pretty standard.
It was essential for their growth, for acquisitions. But here's the key. They ran it using their trusted traditional hierarchical method. They set up task force, hired consultants, a big bureaucratic project management office.
And this is where it gets really interesting, the perception gap.
It's incredible. They interviewed staff at all levels about the financial stakes. What's the damage if this $8 million project fails or gets delayed?
And the answers were all over the place.
All over. The programming supervisor guessed maybe $750,000. Even senior executives, thinking worst case, they kept the damage at around $50 million.
But the reality was so much worse.
Devastating. The project got bogged down in the hierarchy silo politics, slow approvals. The delays meant they missed earnings, a key acquisition was put on ice, and worst of all, a competitor swooped in and grabbed what they called their big opportunity.
So what was the final price tag on that failure?
An industry analyst estimated the total damage, the lost market cap, the strategic damage, the reputation, at somewhere between $1.75 billion and $4.5 billion.
That's that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
For an $8 million internal project, did anyone get fired? Or did they realize it was a bigger problem?
The sources suggest they saw it was systemic. The problem wasn't incompetence, it was the methodology. They just assumed the old way of executing strategy would still work in a world that was speeding up around them, and that assumption cost them billions.
Okay, so the single system is broken for strategic change. The answer then is the dual operating system. And we should stress, this isn't about destroying the hierarchy.
No, absolutely not. You keep the hierarchy. That's the both-hand solution. The hierarchy, the left side, that's your backbone for efficiency, reliability, payroll. You need it.
It delivered the quarterly numbers.
Right. But in parallel, you build a second structure, the network, the right side. And it is optimized for one thing and one thing only: speed, innovation, and strategic agility.
So this network is that solar system structure, but brought back inside the company to operate alongside the pyramid.
Exactly. It's dynamic, it's got a guiding coalition at the center, and it connects volunteers from all across the organization. No bureaucratic layers of its own.
And to make this work, you have to really understand the difference between management and leadership.
A critical distinction. Management is what the hierarchy needs. It's planning, budgeting, staffing, problem solving. It's all about stability and predictable results.
But the network runs on leadership.
It absolutely does. Leadership is about mobilizing people to jump into a better future. It's vision, opportunity, inspiration. And the crucial part here is that the DOS requires so much more leadership, and it has to come from everywhere, not just the CEO.
That raises a really practical question for me, though. If you've got this volunteer army, how do you stop it from just creating chaos? Or worse, how do you prevent resentment from the people stuck in the hierarchy doing the day job?
That's where the 5 core principles of the network become, well, they're non-negotiable. They're the foundation. Okay.
And the first one hits your point directly. You need a radical increase in change agents. We're talking 500 to 1,000% more people driving change than you normally would. You're leveraging 5 to 10% of your entire workforce.
Wow. And that brings us to the second principle, the get-to mindset, which I think is the answer to that resentment question.
It is. If the hierarchy just assigned this extra work, it would be a have to. You'd get burnout, resentment. But these are volunteers. They get to do this because they are energized by the purpose. It taps into that intrinsic motivation.
People's desire to contribute something more than just their job description.
Yes. And the third principle ties it all together. You have to appeal to the head and the heart. You can't just throw out a business case.
An Excel sheet with ROI isn't going to cut it. No. You have to tap into that fundamental human desire to be part of something bigger, something meaningful. When you give people a chance to contribute to a big opportunity that actually excites them, you unlock this passionate energy that costs the company almost nothing. And this dual operating system, it's not just a structure, it's a living engine. The network functions through these systematic processes that Kotter calls the 8 accelerators.
And these aren't like a normal project plan, right? They don't just end.
No, they are continuous. Once they start, they never stop. It's a perpetual motion machine for strategy.
And accelerator number 1 is the spark. It's about building this relentless urgency around a big opportunity, TBO.
And this is subtle. Urgency isn't anxiety. It's not panic. And it's definitely not what he calls false urgency, which is just being busy.
Right.
Real urgency is when people wake up every morning with this compelling desire to push the company toward a huge strategic possibility. They're thinking about the opportunity, not just the problems.
I find the distinction between a big opportunity and a traditional vision statement really fascinating.
It's a huge difference. A vision statement often feels like a top-down directive, a finger pointed inward, telling people they have to change. That threatens their silos, their status.
It puts them onto the defensive.
Exactly. But the TBO is externally focused. It's a finger pointed outward at a rainbow. It's about a possibility, not a threat. It's much less likely to trigger that resistance.
So you're shifting from the fear of a burning platform to the excitement of a burning desire.
And once you light that spark, the other accelerators kick in. Accelerator 2 is building your guiding coalition, that diverse team that steers the network.
Then Accelerator 3 is where that coalition figures out the strategic initiatives that actually line up with the big opportunity.
Right. And those initiatives become the work of the volunteer army, which you enlist in Accelerator 4. That's when you invite that 5 to 10% of the company to join in.
And this is immediately followed by Accelerator 5, enabling action by relentlessly removing barriers.
Wait, let's pause on that one. What kind of barriers are we actually talking about here? It sounds simple, but I'm guessing it's more complicated.
Oh, it's insidious. The barriers are the deep, ingrained habits of the hierarchy. It's the rule that says you need 4 signatures for a tiny budget request.
Or that all cross-department communication has to go through 2 VPs.
Right. Or even just silo-specific jargon that stops people from even understanding each other. The network's job is to just smash through all of that.
So once you've cleared the path, you get to Accelerator 6. Generating and celebrating short-term wins.
Which is so important for psychological momentum.
The wins are proof points. They build credibility, they generate positive energy, and they get the hierarchy to stop seeing the network as just a distraction.
And now we get to one we missed earlier, Accelerator 7, consolidating improvements and producing still more change. Why is that so critical?
Because without it, you just get change fatigue. Accelerator 7 is about using the credibility and the resources you got from those early, smaller wins to tackle bigger, bolder strategic moves. It creates a self-sustaining cycle.
Got it. And finally, Accelerator 8, instituting change, where the good stuff from the network gets absorbed back into the hierarchy's DNA. It closes the loop.
To see how this really works, let's look at that B2B tech firm, Davidson's organization. They were slipping down to number 5 in their market.
They were plagued by slow operations, high costs, all the classic symptoms.
Right. And Davidson knew the traditional structure couldn't fix it, so he launched the DOS. And the network proved its value almost immediately.
How so?
One of their first initiatives was to fix their clunky sales tools. So of volunteer, team salespeople, IT folks, finance people, they got together and built a simplified tool. Because they were outside the normal bureaucracy, they delivered it incredibly fast.
And that was a huge early win.
It was, and the results after just 2 years are, well, they're shocking. The organization went from number 4 to number 2 in their industry. Sales growth shot up by 44%.
Operating income up by over 300%, market cap up 155%. I mean, those numbers are just, it's a geometric return on being agile.
It's proof that the DOS doesn't just make you a little better, it can unleash exponential potential.
So looking forward, this really changes the entire concept of strategy. It's not this rigid, once-a-year planning cycle anymore.
No, the DOS makes strategy a dynamic force. The network is constantly scanning, doing, learning, modifying. It gives the organization what Kotter calls strategic fitness. You're always ready.
Let's get into some practical questions for you, the listener. Because executives always worry about the logistics. First, cost. It has to be expensive, right?
It's designed to be the opposite because you're tapping into the energy and expertise people already have. That intrinsic motivation, the incremental cost is, and I'm quoting the research, almost nothing. You're just redirecting human capital.
Okay, what about the big one? Bandwidth. Aren't people just going to burn out doing their regular job plus this network job?
It seems counterintuitive, but no. Because the network stuff is purpose-driven, it's that get-to mindset. It actually expands people's energy. They feel energized by it, not drained. They end up operating at, say, 120 or 150%.
And what about the senior leaders? How much of their time does this actually take?
It's surprisingly modest, about 2 hours a week. But the quality of that time is what matters. It's not about being in meetings. It's about their public behavior, championing the wins, protecting the network, role modeling the new way of thinking. That's what makes it work.
So we've established a fundamental truth here. In a world that's only getting faster, the single system hierarchy just isn't enough anymore.
It's obsolete for this purpose. The dual system is really the only way forward if you want to be both reliable and agile.
It's how you turn all this global turbulence from a threat into a massive upside.
The research is clear, though, that the single biggest challenge isn't the design. It's just getting started and in the right way.
But even after you launch it, the network faces this constant danger Kotter calls the default problem.
The default problem, which is just that very human tendency to snap back to what's comfortable.
The old left side hierarchical behaviors, especially when you're under stress.
Exactly. The default setting is always stability and process. The risk is that the hierarchy quietly suffocates the network when nobody's looking.
And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to take away. If that default problem is inevitable, how can you and your team institutionalize vigilance? What's the specific mechanism you could build to watch for that quiet, insidious creep of the hierarchy trying to reassert control? And how do you flag it before it kills your momentum?
Understanding this gives you the roadmap. It gives you the chance to be one of those pioneers who doesn't just manage change, but actually accelerates through it.
That's the deep dive for today. We'll see you next time.